Uh, so guys, I have a special guest with me today. This is my brother Austin Shot Lonsert. He's been in the gaming industry. Austin, could you tell us a little bit about your career and history?
Yeah, sure. So, my brief history of my career, I started as a started as a solo queue climber in League of Legends, and then eventually went into the competitive scene, more so amateur scene. Was never fully pro in League of Legends, um, but participated in like Challenger, the Challenger scene qualifier cup. I forget, it was Challenger series qualifier cups. Never quite made it to the Challenger series, but by the time I was ready to start a new season, I decided to take a risk and switch games over to a Blizzard Entertainment game. Rest in peace, that company. And Heroes of the Storm, also rest in peace, that game. And I played professionally for about 6 years in Heroes of the Storm. And then during that time, I also participated in the collegiate scene for multitude of schools. I competed for California State University Fullerton. I competed for Arizona State University, which I won the collegiate championship in Heroes of the Storm for. And I also competed for Louisiana State University, which we did not do as well in. I decided to stop competing for a while because I wanted a more stable source of income. Competing is great and it's wonderful as long as you enjoy doing it and you're competing and you're having a blast and your drive is there. But even the best players who win all the time will tell you that it's not a stable income and it doesn't last forever. So I decided to move into the business side of esports, and now currently I am working as the social media manager for FlyQuest.
Let's go back to before you were professional at Heroes of the Storm. You mentioned that you were playing League of Legends, solo queue grinding. Can you tell me kind of a little bit about that? Like, how many hours were you playing a day? Did you have a routine? What champ were you like? How many champs were you grinding? Stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah. So in when I was really going hard on League of Legends, I was an 80 carry player. My main characters were like Draven and Lucian and Caitlyn, because Caitlyn's like when in doubt, pick Caitlyn. Um, I grinded way too much, but I wanted to go competitive. This is before I really asked my family if I could attempt to make a career out of this.
That's the next question. Keep going.
Okay, okay. But I grinded for probably around 8 to 9 hours a day, trying to balance school life, which we can get into a little bit later. But played around 8 to 9 hours a day. I loved every second of it. Typically tried to duo with people until like I got high enough where you're not allowed to duo anymore and you have to solo queue.
Okay, cool. So you grinded like three or four champions, put
Yeah.
in a lot of like basically a full-time job amount of
I mean,
hours.
obviously I played more than 3 to 4 champions. It's just those were like my main characters. Like I want to climb. This is what I'm most comfortable on. So I'm going to pick what I'm comfortable on. And once I hit like Diamond 2 and I was still climbing, I considered, I was like, maybe I could actually make this a career or something. But again, my school was being funded by my family, so it wasn't just like, oh, I'm just going to quit school, it's my money. I had to like discuss it with my family before I could actually go for it.
Right. And so let's talk about that. Were your parents, our parents, were they supportive at first, or what was
So it was interesting. At first I was afraid to talk to my parents about it because we were raised very traditionally, like video games rot your brain kind of thing. So I was a little scared to reach out to my parents and be like, hey, I want to make this like a job. I want to go for it. I want to see how well I can do. So I actually reached out to you and Sarah, our sister, first, and asked like, hey, like I need an objective opinion. You've seen me play, you've watched my gameplay. Do you think I could be a competitive player? Because I'm considering going into it and I believe in myself. You were the most supportive, saying like, hey, I mean, if you love it and you think you're good at it and you think you can still improve, then I don't see why not. And then I asked you if you could put in a good word to my mother for me before I asked her.
Yeah.
And inevitably I asked my mother. There's a whole like very depressing, sad story behind that as well. I don't know if we want to get into it, but I asked my mother, and I asked, could I take a year off of school? Because I did not do very well in that semester of school that I was in because I skipped all my classes just to play League of Legends.
Don't do that, college students.
Don't do that. It's not ideal. I will say getting my degree has been huge for me just in my professional career. People take me more seriously. And I think it's a little silly because I think if you're going into the esports industry, it's more about your experience in the esports industry than the degree that you have. But the way that specifically America works, if you have a degree, you're more attractive. But yeah, so I skipped all my classes just to play League of Legends. I did very bad in the semester. And then I asked my mother if I could take a year off of school to pursue competitive League of Legends. She talked to James. James
vouched and
James
told
vouched
her
for me
to go for it.
And she gave me 1 year and said, if you don't make significant progress, then you're going back to school. And that's all I needed. I decided that I'm going to take that year and I'm going to grind super hard. I created a schedule for myself. It was like wake up, shower, eat, then play League of Legends solo queue for like 4 hours, take a break for like 30 minutes, then go back and watch higher level players VODs to see what they're doing that I'm not doing, and then go back to another 4 hours of grinding in solo queue. Usually it ended up being like 6 more hours of solo queue just because I was addicted.
Yes, he was addicted. He spent more than 6 to 8 hours. It was well into midnight, 2 a.m. So
this was no days off either. Yeah. So it was a 7-day work week, over 40 hours a day, over 40 hours a week, every single day.
But the thing was though that you stuck to it, right? You were on top of it. It wasn't like you were like, you might have got one break, like, every 3 weeks or something, like where you went out with friends or like hung out with friends, but you stuck to your schedule and made it work. Yeah, I mean, coming from the brother standpoint where I was always better than you, and then all of a sudden you were just destroying everybody at League of Legends, and it was humbling to watch you do that.
I remember my start of League of Legends careers. We played 3v3 on Twisted Treeline, and I built 6 Phantom Dancer Master Yi because I had no idea how to play the video game, and I was like, this item's my favorite item, so I'm just gonna build 6 of them. Yep, I was Diamond 1 Challenger promos, and I never completely successfully acquired the rank of Challenger, but I joined multiple Challenger teams throughout that time. And so I decided to focus more on playing with my teammates in scrims and tournaments rather than grinding solo queue. In esports in general, when people are scouting for you, literally all they care about is they look at your rank first. And that's like 99% of their decision is like, oh, he's challenger, let's look into him further. If you're like lower than that, like let's say you're like grandmaster, master, they'll still look at you. But like diamond and stuff, back then it was more acceptable to be diamond 1. But oftentimes people will be like, oh, he's not challenger, so it's like not even worth our time to look at it. Let's look at all the challenger players first, then we'll come back to him if we really can't find anything.
So you're joining these challenger teams. We know you didn't go pro in League of Legends. So what happened? What happened with the transition?
So yeah, I was making progress in League of Legends, but I decided that at the time the pro scene was very, I don't know how to say it. Like all they did was like they would just recycle the same players over and over again. Like a player would get kicked from an LCS team or a challenger team, and they would just replace it with another player that got kicked from their LCS team or their challenger team. And it was a lot of just like, these people know each other, so they're just going to keep recycling each other. And at the time, I had a huge loss of motivation because of that. So I decided that I would take a risk and jump to a new MOBA that was coming out from Blizzard called Heroes of the Storm. I love the Blizzard universe in general, just like the storytelling and like all the characters. So I was like, if this MOBA is fun and good, I can easily beat these guys because I was beating League of Legends players. So like, why not? A huge risk just because it was an unproven IP, and it was brand new, and it was considered to be like baby's first MOBA. But I believed in Blizzard at the time, and they were a reputable company at the time. And I thought it could be the next big thing. So I started grinding away. I actually stole James's Blizzard account because he got access to the alpha before I did. Don't account share, by the way. Bad news bears, you will get banned. So I just told James this is my account now.
More like I gave you my account and encouraged you to play Heroes of the Storm.
All right, well,
whatever.
Well, but after that, we decided to part ways with Lunatic and just be like our own free agent. And then we got reached out to an organization called Cognitive Gaming, which used to be in League of Legends and also was the season 1 world champions in Smite. Right. And so they reached out to us. We had a very nice conversation. We signed with them, and they literally said after we signed with them, how quickly can you all move to San Jose, California? Which was insane. I didn't think like we would be getting a team house or anything, but they ended up putting us up in apartments, and we played out of a gamer cafe.
So I wanted to talk. So obviously that was a huge step in your career and like super scary things to go through. Because you were like what, 19, 20 at the time?
So I think I was 18, something like that.
So you're pro. You're pro in a esport, and you guys are competing, and it's in Blizzard and all that, and you guys did really well. I think you guys came in 3rd in the country.
We were the undisputed 3rd best team in North America.
Right, and you constantly went up against the 1st and 2nd, and you took games off of them. So I don't really want to talk about your career in the pro scene, but what I do want to talk about is your like living situation and your mentality, and like how do you interact with your teammates and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, sure. So believe it or not, I was actually very depressed on my time on Cognitive. Yeah, it was great. I was having a blast, like meeting people and interacting with my teammates and just meeting the staff that surrounded us. But chemically, I was depressed, and I wasn't treating it. So a lot of my depression kind of snuck its way into the team environment. I would get very angry very quickly when things didn't go the way I wanted them to, which, rubbed people the wrong way. They started to like think less of me just because I would get angry. I'd sleep very often, and oftentimes people would have to come wake me up for scrims, which is not a good look either. It just makes it look like I didn't care, but in reality I was just so exhausted mentally that I needed the sleep, and I did really care. But overall, my relationship with my teammates kind of took a hit where I tried to be more outgoing and invite my teammates to do things, whereas they saw it as, this is a waste of time, you should be grinding instead, which I just disagreed on a fundamental level. I understood the importance of grinding. However, you can only grind so much in a day, especially in Heroes of the Storm, until you hit like a level where it's just like, what's really the point? I'm just kind of getting these points for kind of nothing aside from my own mechanical skill. But once I like feel like I'm comfortable enough, or I've worked on the thing that I wanted to work on that day, and I've achieved it, then I didn't see a real reason to continue to grind that day. So I try to bring my teammates out on like fun events, like, going to a bar or whatever, not a bar, but like an 18 bar, and just like hang out and like get to know each other better. My teammates were very much antisocial and didn't want to do that and just wanted to play. So like there was a lot of conflict there. I was also a pretty messy person. We had a professional chef that catered to us and got us whatever food we wanted, and I would leave plates and dishes all over my workstation, which like would then flow over to my teammates' workstation, and that wasn't cool. We had many conversations about that, and I struggled to really fix that issue, and I wish I could apologize to my past teammates for that, just because I could understand how frustrating that would be. But a lot of our relationship issues just came down to personality. And I believe personality is like almost more important than your skill level. Obviously you have to have a baseline skill level of like, okay, you could be a professional, you can hang with these guys, but the personality of the teammates have to mix well. Otherwise the team will have some success but won't go the long term.
Right. So it's more like how do they interact even in game and out of game?
Yes.
Like how they how they interact with each
Well,
other.
it's just like if,
play well.
for example, I had a teammate on that same team. His name was Glaurung. We were incredibly amazing together. Like as players, we had incredible synergy. We worked together extremely well, but outside of the game, we couldn't stand each other. We did not like each other whatsoever, but we both acknowledged that we were sick together. Sick as in like good. Which I was fine with this. I wanted it to be a better relationship between us, but unfortunately it just wasn't that way. And it just got to a point where he couldn't deal with me anymore and decided to like start bad mouthing me to other teammates and trying to get them on his side to eventually remove me from the team, which I thought was a really bad decision, especially at the time where I was removed. We were going into qualifiers for BlizzCon, which made no sense to me. Why remove me before one of the most important tournaments of our careers? But they did, and then they ended up not qualifying for BlizzCon. So that was like my egotistical, like, yeah, get wrecked. Like,
so your professional career kind of ended there for HOTS. Like, it didn't end, but it was
hey,
kind of
I placed top 8 in plenty of tournaments after that.
It was
okay?
the beginning of the end for your pro scene. Just because I think you got burnt out, right? And you decided that you didn't want to like start from scratch again, get another team together.
It was exhausting mentally. It was exhausting.
Yeah.
I felt betrayed, but at the same time I understood why it happened. And
you know
and
why it happened, because you were not the best person you could be, right? Like
exactly
in and out of the game.
Yeah,
You were
I fully deserved to be removed from the team for my actions. I just think the timing was poor.
Yeah.
I do believe that if we had better player staff where, you know, managers or psychologists, like people working with us, a lot of this issues could have been fixed, but it really boiled down to 5 teenagers trying to figure out how to run a business by themselves. There's just a lot of egos in esports, and mine included. I had an ego as well. But the egos really destroy teams before they can really become something amazing. And it's a shame because there are so many teams where like you look on paper and you're like, this is going to be the best team in the world, but then like 2 egos clash and everything falls apart and nobody wants to play together. Nobody wants to win just because like they're upset at their teammate not thinking the same exact way that they do.
Happens. That's a common problem in esports, player mentality and player conflicts.
Yeah, I will say, in terms of like getting along with your teammates or getting along with just people, like even if you don't get along with someone, burning the bridge just because like say I didn't like a teammate and I decided I hated him or something, having that just be known is detrimental to your career. Because you know people talk. Esports isn't the most mature industry in the entire world. People talk, they talk behind your back, they gossip, and then they also lie. If like someone doesn't like you, they'll just lie about you and to people that they're close friends with, and then those close friends of that person will formulate this idea of who you are as a person, and they won't have anything to do with you ever. Even if you're a good player, they'll just be like, oh well, I know that this person is toxic or not a great person or he does this, even if it's not true. It happens all the time. It happens with almost every single player. It's happened. Like
those are good lessons that you've learned through your career, your professional career.
To be
Okay.
fair, it's the same in business as well. If
It
you're
is.
if you're a jerk, people are gonna be like, "Ooh, I wouldn't hire that guy," you
Well,
know.
that's why everybody's like got their business face on, right? Like whenever you're in a office or something, everybody's
Mhm.
very business attire, business, personality, and then you get out of the office, they're a completely different person. It goes the same with esports. You have to have a professional appearance. You, I'm gonna summarize. It's not gonna be 100% correct.
All right.
You decided to go back to school, and you Blizzard was holding Heroes of the Dorm, and they were giving full ride scholarships to whatever school won, whatever team won, and this was across the country. Any school could enter, and there was a lot of schools that
It was
you
like
played up.
600 teams.
Yeah, 600 teams. You guys played for ASU. You didn't drop a single game, a single match. I don't think you lost a single game.
We didn't lose a single game. So
Guys,
like if it was a best of 3, we went 2-0 every time.
yeah. So you guys did exceptionally well. You won your scholarship. Your career, your entire college got paid for through that single tournament. It was an incredible journey. I didn't get to go in person. My mom did. I got to see it on TV though. It was awesome.
I cried on stage.
You cried on stage. Uh, so you've experienced the best and the worst of both worlds. You've been to the top of the professional scene, you've been to the top of the collegiate scene, and then you've seen the bottoms, like the bad mentality, yourself included,
The dysfunctional teams.
dysfunctional teams, bad communication, and you've seen it all. So
To have a stable life, there's like the 3 things in life that you can have. It's a social life, school, and then video games is what we have, or for our industry. So there's social life, school, and video games. You get to choose 2. And we chose school and video games. So none of us had a social life.
Right.
We just played just played Heroes of the Storm and grinded all the time. And we made it work. We grinded harder than everybody else. We practiced against professional teams because we needed to know how to lose. We were good enough to beat every other collegiate team pretty handedly. Like there were some close calls from some of the teams, but like scrimming against them, we knew we were objectively like the better team, if just by a little bit. But
let
you don't.
me stop you. Go back to
Yeah, sorry.
losing.
Yeah. I was getting to it. So like we were objectively like better than the other collegiate teams, even if by just a little. So we decided to practice against pro teams. We'd reach out and like they knew us. So like because we were in the professional scene prior to this. And so we're like, hey, could we scrim against like Cloud9 or could we scrim against Tempo Storm? And it was worse for the pros because they knew that they were better than us. But like they threw us a bone. They're like, yeah, sure. Like we'll schedule a block or 2. And we would get thrashed in these games. And the reason that we wanted it to play against them so badly is because when you're winning every single game in a tournament or a league, you start to get complacent. You start to be like, okay, yeah, we're going to win, and we don't have to respect our opponents. And you can get a little cocky. So we needed to be able to learn how to lose. So we would have days where we just played against the top 3 pro teams all day and lose every single game. And it was just a practice mentality. Just be like, okay, like we lost, but what could we take from that? What did we learn from that? And it really helped us. We had this air of kind of like cockiness in the collegiate tournament where people thought we were overly arrogant, but in reality we took every single game extremely seriously just because we knew what it was like to lose. And we didn't want to underestimate anybody. All of our cockiness and arrogance was mostly for show or for mind games.
On stage. That was after, like, not in game. This was on stage,
and social media as well.
Social media. I 100%. I understand that. So I actually want to hit on that subject where you're saying that you were taking every single game like as seriously as you could, right? It was not like, hey, we're gonna sit here in front of the Nexus and we're gonna dance on the Nexus, and then they might come back and kill us all, and we lose the game.
We prided ourselves in having the shortest average game time. because we just wanted to close it out as quickly as humanly possible. Because if you give a team long enough, they might bounce back. They might win a team fight and close the game out.
That's how MOBAs work. It's like if the game goes long enough and a bad fight happens, and
yeah, anyone can make a mistake, even on the better team. You can make a mistake and throw the entire game. So we took it as seriously as possible. And we're like, no, we're not making mistakes. If we do, we'll do our best to cover for it. But like as soon as the game is possible to be ended, we're going to end it, because we don't want to give anybody a chance to come back.
Like if you could go back and just change some things, what would you change?
A lot.
The big ones that come to mind.
Specifically on my first professional team, Cognitive, I would have been a lot more personable with my teammates, understanding that they weren't as social as I was, being more respectful of their space. I would have apologized a lot more, and I would have reached out to the staff on my team and asked if they could work with me, because knowing your own flaws, in my opinion, is one of the most important things just to improve as a player. And if you're actively working towards improving yourself, even outside of the game, people take notice of that, and it changes their perception of you a lot. I tried to make a reputation for myself as being like the villain of the storm, because I thought it was like a good marketing technique. In all honesty, I probably wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have, excuse my French, shit talked as much as I did. I wouldn't have showboated as much as I did. I would have just been a pure, like, I just want to win the game. Now on your stream, you can do that a little bit more, but like in like professional settings, like actual legitimate settings, I would have done less of it. And also I just would have been a better friend to all of my teammates, because again, like for me specifically, the story of my career was me burning bridges and then not having anywhere to go afterwards. So I would have spent more time cultivating relationships, even if I didn't necessarily like the person all that much. I would have just been nicer and more human to them, so that they didn't have this sour taste in their mouth about me.
You as a professional player, as a person that was probably almost always like at the top, do you have any advice for the top tier players and competing with these lower ranked players, and then vice versa? What about the lower ranked players to the top ranked players?
It's difficult. Like I said, we had a player on our Heroes of the Dorm team that was not experienced like whatsoever. If you are so good at the game and someone on your team is not that good, you should be able to teach them. If you think you are all that in a bag of chips, you should be able to share some of your knowledge and bring them up at least close to your level, or just under your level, but better than they currently are. And in all honesty, sometimes you're stuck with that person. So like, if that person is on your team and there's no substitute or no replacement coming in, what do? The only thing you can do is help them improve, because you're going to be playing with them. Your win-loss ratio is somewhat dependent on their gameplay. So like, what is the purpose of like ragging on them, or even in your head just like ignoring them and just being like, oh my god, I wish this person wasn't on my team, etc. Like, that doesn't do anything. It just ruins your mentality, makes you not want to play with them, makes you not want to try in the games that you are in with them. So the only thing you can do is help them improve and work with them and play with them more, just to show like where they're lacking in a constructive way. You can't just be like, oh my god, you're garbage, like what are you doing, like you should have done this. It's like, hey, I would like to go over this replay with you. I want to show you like what you're doing. I want you to explain your thought process going into this play, and then I want to explain how I see it. And that, even just that simple gesture of like helping them out, like will make them want to, they'll look up to you. They'll be like, I want to impress this guy or this girl, and I want to be able to match their skill level, and I don't want to be a detriment to the team, and I want to do them proud. So they'll work harder. And they'll have the motivation to do it. If you're negative towards them, they're just gonna be like, well, what's the point? He's just gonna shit on me anyway. So I don't want to try, because because F this guy, you know? Um, and then for the weaker players playing with better players, um, it's it's difficult because there is the anxiety of like, oh, they're better than me, they know better than me, but you still need to share your opinions. And even if like it gets shot down, you have to ask why is my opinion incorrect? I want to learn. As long as you show you're willing to learn, and that willingness to learn will be heard by the better players. They'll be like, okay, he's not just here because he lucked out, he wants to improve, he wants to get better, so it's my duty as the better player to help this guy grow. And it'll create a relationship where it might be like um a mentor and a student kind of relationship, but like that's fine. And then eventually the student might overtake the master and be on a better team than them in the future.
Yeah.
I have had so many people in my career where I did not think they would go anywhere, and then they ended up being on like a second place team that does better than my teams. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy, I can't believe I lost to this guy. He's so bad. But in reality, he improved tenfold, and I'm the bad one now. So you never know who's going to be amazing and who's going to be have a cap of ceiling or a skill cap. But it's just on, if you are a team, it is everyone's responsibility to improve, and the better players have to do honestly more work than the weaker players, and you have to improve yourself and help improve your weaker players. You absolutely need to have your comms be either all business, like this person's here, watch out top, like whatever, like you're discussing what's happening in the game. I'm ganking level 3, I'm swinging, whatever you're going to like, it needs to be all business, or it should be positive. As soon as negativity comes into comms, the game is basically lost. Because everyone feels it. Everyone knows when, like, if your shot caller is getting like is starting to build that dread of like, we're not going to win, the entire team just kind of gives up mentally. They check out and be like, okay, I'm just going to play through this game until it's over. And hopefully we win, but most likely not. You might as well have forfeited at that point. Like, even if you're down and you're like, you have a 75% chance to lose the game, what are you going to do to come back into the game? There's always a chance you turn it around. There's always a chance to win. So, and as soon as those comms take a dip, your chances at winning are also going to take a dip.
And again, that is something that is really hard to hear in esports in general, collegiate or pro. That's a fact. It happens all the time. Teams just lose, even though they're the better team and they have like a lead. They can throw some negative comment to a teammate. That teammate is all of a sudden, okay, well, I'm not going to try because,
I mean, even if they do think that they're still trying, they aren't trying the same amount of level. Like, subconsciously, they have lost a little bit of their try hard.
Yes. And your attitude and your comments do affect other players. And you just got to keep yourself in check, regardless of how you're feeling. And my brother, Austin Shot Lonsert, and myself both know how our outbursts and negative emotions affect each other.
And everyone gets emotional. It happens, but you have to be able to like check yourself. And if you do explode at someone, you need to be able to like recognize it within like the next 2 hours and reach out to them and be like, hey, that was not okay what I did. Like, even though like I think we could have won that and there were mistakes on your end, I shouldn't have spoke the way that I did. And I just want us to improve and get better. So like, if we can look at it together, that'd be huge. Your esports career will not last forever. This is like a dream that you're chasing, and hopefully it works out for you. It is rare for it to work out, but if you try hard enough and you are passionate enough and you are determined enough, you can make it work. And if you're objective with your own skill level, you can make it work. But it's not going to last forever. When do you see a 39-year-old playing League of Legends like professionally, like on LCS stage or at Worlds. No. So enjoy the time that you have in esports. Obviously, you can always go into the business side, management side, team side, but your playing days, unfortunately, are numbered. So just go for it full force while you can. Make something of yourself while doing it, and honestly, just be the bigger person in most circumstances. The esports industry is toxic enough as it is. You don't need to add to it. And good luck.
All right. Well, thank you, Austin. I appreciate you coming out and doing this interview with me. I know
Absolutely.
not your favorite thing to talk about your professional career, but thank you.